So we're not that far away then, everybody, from getting racing back underway here at Brands Hatch. The next race will be the first of two today for the BMR Super Saloons and the Classic and Modern Motorsport Club TinTops races then. And Ian caught up with a few of the drivers a few moments ago.
Well, the action certainly comes thick and fast here, doesn't it, at Brands Hatch, and as the temperature starts to get even colder, we're going to chat to some of the drivers ahead of the next race. Here is Chris Barrett, that's second place. Chris, how you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. You?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, we know the man who's not here yet, but Rod Birley, he's going for a bit of a milestone this weekend. Are you going to stop him from getting to the flag first?
I very much doubt that, really. In this little old Peugeot up against the Cosy, I don't think we've got much chance to be fair.
Well, you never know, because the
well, he could not finish, so that's the only chance that we're
not finish. It could chuck it down whilst you're halfway around. You never know what's going to happen. But you're in second. You can take it home from there to second, can't you, at least?
Hopefully so. I mean, obviously in qualifying it was quite greasy. It wasn't wet, but it was just really, really greasy. And I think that played into our hands with it being front-wheel drive compared to some of the quicker Super Saloons that are rear-wheel drive. So we'll see what we can do in the race.
Where's the slippiest bits out there? I've seen a few people having troubles at clearways today.
Yeah, it's. I think coming out of Druids, Graham Hill, and certainly coming out of the exit of Clearways, the most greasiest parts of the circuit. So as long as we can keep on the black stuff and come home in TinTops, we'll be happy.
Fantastic, best of luck. Cheers, Chris. There you go. Chris Bassett there starts in at second place. Let's go grab a word of Vic Hope up here in car number 5 as well, whilst he's here. Thanks, guys. Vic, how you doing?
All right.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, and you?
Qualifying went all right?
I was shocked. I expected to be nowhere.
Well, it's a nice surprise then. Why is that then? Why?
I've done what I tell everyone not to do. I've changed everything. Everything in the back axle's changed. I'm on 4 new tyres that I've never tried in my life. I'm on brake pads that I've never tried in my life. So, I don't know.
So maybe the new advice is to everybody is to change everything.
Well, now I'm going to don't ever change anything, because if it works for me, I don't want it to work for them, do I?
Look, best of luck for the race, won't you? It's going to be an absolute cracker, isn't it?
See you next week. We're in the K8.
Oh, are you? Oh, fantastic stuff. Right, as I said before, man starting on pole position, Rod Birley. He's on 698 wins. Yes, and there's 2 races today. If he wins both races, he will have earned 700 race wins. So we're certainly on Rod Birley watch. So let's hand over to your commentator, Andy, to take you through the action.
Well, that's fantastic. I had no idea about that. However, what did Ian just say about it could chuck it down at any moment? I think that's exactly what it's done, hasn't it? Because it's suddenly got a lot darker, and that looks a lot wetter to me. And a couple of cars are coming into the pit lane. I'm pretty sure one of them was Rod Birley. He should be lining up on pole position alongside Chris Bassett alongside in that Peugeot. Then it is the Mitsubishi of Nick Sutton with Vic Hope alongside on row number 2. They're being given a second green flag, by the way, because of the change of conditions. Row number 3 then is Nick Wall in the Renault Clio and Steve Dan's VW Scirocco ahead of Peter Selden's BMW M3 and the Honda Civic Type R of Dave Hutchins. Another Civic of Neil Garner that lines up on the 5th row of the grid alongside Ronan Bradley's E36 BMW ahead of Gary Barlow in the Honda DC5. I wish it were that Gary Barlow. It is not, though, I'm afraid. That would be hilarious. With Colin Tester on the 6th row as well. Row number 7 is Ian Seal in the Ford Fiesta 150 ST and another BMW, this time the E36 Coupe of Ken Angell. Mark Cripps then in the VW Golf lines up on the 8th row alongside Chris Birley. Then Richard Sanders Ford Fiesta, Nicholas Lund's Honda Integra ahead of Mark Williams in a Clio, a pair of BMWs of Jack Whitehead and Martin Scott with Angelo Massanetto in the Citroen Saxo at the back of the grid. So, hearing that so the race is being stopped before it started. On the list of things that I've never seen before, this is about the 3rd this weekend that I've come across. I've never seen a race red flag before it actually started, but this is clearly because of the change of conditions. I would imagine that certainly the Super Saloons are on slick tyres, and they can't go restarting the race. You can see the rain is absolutely teeming down, so they're going to abandon the start of the race. We'll have another short delay, I'm afraid, and then we will get the race underway. We're still 5 minutes early. This race wasn't supposed to start for another 5 minutes. Now, this will granted take longer than 5 minutes to sort out, but I don't imagine that we're going to end up too far behind in the schedule, and you can see why. They can't possibly expect them to race on slick tyres in this. That's why a couple of them had headed for the pit lane. I'm sure sure one of the cars that I saw coming to the pits was Rod Birley in that, yes it was, look, bottom left of the screen, you can see the black Escort with the blue roof. That is Rod Birley's four-wheel drive Ford Escort WRC, but even with four-wheel drive you need grippy tyres in these conditions. Fear as well will be that the rain might be here to stay, because there's no wind really today, certainly very low amount of wind, and that means that the track conditions are likely to stay this way now for the foreseeable. It's not blowing the weather through particularly. A shame though, because we just got to dry conditions really, having started the day wet. It started to improve quite nicely over the last half an hour or so. So the cars will head to the pit lane. I think this might end up being a fairly lengthy delay as well, because I believe these teams, for the most part, are based on the outer paddock, though actually a couple of them are heading into the garages there. But anyone that is not based on the inner paddock, for those unfamiliar with Brands Hatch, there are two paddock areas. The inner paddock, which is what you can see there behind the pit garages, that's being used predominantly by the brick car teams, with, by the looks of it, a couple of exceptions, but then the rest of them are all on the outer paddock. You have to go through a tunnel underneath Paddock Hill Bend and get out to the paddock itself on the outside of the track. The point I'm making is that many of the teams will not have brought wet tyres back over from the outer to the inner paddock, so they'll have to send the cars all the way back to the outer paddock, get the tyres changed, and then get them back into the assembly area to do this all over again. So it's going to take a little bit of time, this, I fear. Some of them that are based in the garages are executing tyre changes now. You can see one of the Renault Clios there in the garage, that or outside of the garage. That might be Nick Wall's car, and a few of them are doing that. But there you can see the cars heading into the tunnel to head to that outer paddock. So yeah, this is going to take, I guess, a good 10-15 minutes maybe to get them sorted and back into the assembly area. So frustrating, of course, for the drivers and for the teams. There you can see that's the outer paddock on the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. The cars heading into the outer paddock to regroup with their teams, and of course their team members will also have walked over for the most part to the pit lanes, and they've got to get back over there as well. So it's less than ideal. This can't be helped. We, as I said, for safety reasons couldn't be expected to start the race, but it is just going to take them, I think, a bit of time to get all of this sorted. Good to see a decent crowd on hand, though not the most pleasant weather to be out there in, and the rain coming down now, certainly not what they will have wanted to see, but good to see most of them are staying where they are and just waiting this out. We're hearing a 10-minute delay is expected, so 10 minutes time hopefully we should get the cars making their way back towards the circuit. So bit of a frustrating situation here, but as I said, once we get the cars back in, we should then, for subsequent races, this shouldn't be an issue. The next race is, in fact the next session is a warm-up session actually for the Brick Car Endurance Championship, so that can dry out the circuit a little bit hopefully. They obviously are based in the garages. There you can see the timetable of racing, but after this race there is a warm-up session that we won't be broadcasting, but it will be happening still, and it will be clearing water from the track, and then we're into the Intermarque series. They have wet tyres that they can use. The Ginetta Juniors run on grooved tyres anyway, and the Minis will have the option of sticking wet tyres on as well, so it shouldn't be that this weather continues to delay proceedings. It's just affecting this race. The Mini Challenge, the Mini Winter Challenge, the Super Saloons will be back out at 4:15-ish, and then into the night we will have the second and final Brick Car Endurance Championship trophy race of the weekend. And if it's wet for that, that could be a really, really lively one. We've had wet night races before here with Brick Car at Brands Hatch, and it certainly looks spectacular for us spectators, but for the drivers it becomes really, really challenging. Even more challenging than simply driving and racing in the dry at night, which yesterday provided plenty of thrills and spills. Race won by one of the Voluga Porsches, the other one though ending the race in the barriers at Paddock Hill Bend on the final lap or so.
So we wait while everyone changes tyres. As I say, after this we're having a warm-up for the Hello.
So the BARC continuing to put on some really good racing in 2021 as well. Britcar in particular, which is kind of the headline act here this weekend, with some really exciting news of late, which I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail afterwards, but the spectators do their best to stay warm and dry. But yes, Britcar next year. It's been announced recently they'll be running the Motorsport UK sanctioned British Endurance Championship, which is a really, really big step up for Britcar, really rewarding them and the BARC for all of their hard work that's been done over the last few years. I mean, I remember only 2 or 3 years ago, really, the last time I was involved in a Britcar event, and there was a pretty low entry of cars for that particular event, almost into single figures, and now look at them. We've got for the regular championship events, the endurance races in particular, capacity grids, and that is just so fantastic to see. So congratulations to everyone at BARC and Britcar for their hard work that they've been doing. We're hoping to get some racing back on track in the next 5-10 minutes or so. In the meantime though, out in the rain is Ian Waterhouse, and I can see a few cars now starting to arrive in the assembly area, so hopefully a few drivers will be down there to have a chat with Ian and let him know what they think of the conditions out on the circuit.
Right, everybody, welcome back to the assembly area. It was a pit stop for everybody, and it was a pit stop for us as well, because I had to get to Birley for the camera. But as you can see, a lot of cars are now back and ready to go. But we've got some of the drivers over here. We've got Ken Angell here. Let's have a quick chat with Ken, shall we? Well, I suppose that was a bit of an unexpected shower, wasn't it, really?
I think we could have all done without it. I mean, I'm on treaded tyres, so I've stayed with what I've got. Cause it's not actually raining now. It stopped. It was just like a 2-minute shower.
Yeah.
So it'll clear. The wet tyres on the Super Saloons will obviously clear some of the water off.
Yeah.
But they'll take a while to warm up, won't they?
They certainly will.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I spoke to Rod a little bit earlier, and he just said, I just don't like that bit in between, that weather in between. We've got that, haven't we?
Yeah, the in between is not good, especially for the rear-wheel drive BMWs.
Yeah. Best of luck. That's all I can say to Ken. Thanks for talking to us. Do you want this shut?
No, I'll leave it open.
Leave it open, get some air in. Don't want to miss stuff. Ian Searle here as well as in the Fiesta. Let's say hello to Ian, my namesake as well, from one Ian to another. Ready for this, Ian?
Yeah, I'm ready for this. Last time I spoke to you, I was in a Clio at Snetterton.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now you're in a Fiesta. How's that come about?
It's all right. Well, the Clio dropped a valve when we were supposed to be competing here on the Grand Prix circuit. I think it was last year. And on the Thursday, on a track day, and so we switched to the Fiesta, and I've stayed in it since then. It's been gorgeous. It's a really great car.
Fantastic. Well, look, enjoy this, won't you? And obviously stay safe as well. We've got Colin Tester over here in the Honda too. Let's go have a word with him, and then I've got another person I want to go speak to. Right, here he is, Colin. This is...
how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm very well. How are you? Actually, that's probably the more important thing. And how are you in the wet?
Yeah, I love it in the wet round here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I know the place really well, so I was all up for that, and then obviously I can understand why they've done that.
Yes.
Because the Super Saloons, probably a lot of those are on slicks, but you know, in the TinTop category, you're on a sort of list 1B, 1C tyre, so we just stuck with what we've got.
Oh, okay. So it's just straight through and back in here for you. In fact, you were the first car back, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There you go. Eager. He's eager. This man. He's going to go for it.
We're up for it.
Good man. Best of luck. Cheers. There you go. Do you want that? There you go. Look, we're going to go chat to Rod Birley down here. You might have heard me say a little bit earlier. If he gets 2 wins, it's going to be 700. So let's see how he's feeling as well, because he is in. Look at this Escort. It is an absolute monster. When you watch this as well, make sure you turn up the volume as well, because it's going to be something quite special. He's in the car, isn't he? There he is.
Look out, Rod.
Look out, Rod. That's what they all said. Now, Rod, we spoke this morning, didn't we? You said to me, Ian, I hate it. I don't mind the wet. I don't mind the dry. I just don't like it when it's in between. And look what you've got.
Yeah, I know. And we were already on the slicks. And to be honest, as we went up to the grid, it wasn't too bad. But then just sitting on the grid, that next wave came, and straight away on the warm-up lap, I thought, yeah, this is not good. So I dived in, and then the team did a great job of changing the tyres, but then everybody else, obviously, they red flagged it and aborted the start. But no, they did pretty good, our boys. Not as good as Red Bull, but they're not far behind.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Now, it could be a very important day for you today, couldn't it? Why is that?
Well, we're sitting on 698 wins now, so if we manage to get 2 more, we hit the magic 700, but I really could have done without this, all this pressure. And it's just the variables with the weather. I don't mind if it's wet, I don't mind if it's dry, but when you're trying to second guess it, and particularly here in the winter when it's cold, this morning in practice it was drying, but it wasn't dry enough, so I went with the wets. And then obviously it literally had just dried out for that mini race, and it was looking really good, and I thought, and then yes.
I don't know if you know, one of your teams actually left the laptop on the roof of the car. I hope you don't go off with that. That would be a shame. Quickly as well, Rob, nearly at 700. Can you remember the first ever win? Where was it? When was it? And what were you driving?
It was it's a Hillman Imp, and it was built by the late great George Bevan, whose grandson is here today helping us, Jonathan.
Wonderful.
He's over there with the ball hat. And it was at a circuit in Scotland which no longer is open, Ingliston, which is there's an awful lot of circuits I've been to which are now shut.
Not there anymore.
Which is a sign of the times, especially from oval racing. But Ingliston in Scotland. It was at the Royal Highland Showground at Edinburgh, and funny enough, I think the second win was a class win at Cadwell Park of all places, and we went back there this year for the first time in ages. Didn't realise how narrow it was.
Bike track, isn't it?
But it's a good, exciting track. But
so I suppose then, Rod, in your house, because that's just wins, isn't it? There's probably been numerous podiums over the years as well. Do you have a separate wing in your house for all the trophies?
Yeah, we have got a rather large cabinet which a friend of ours built in the lounge, which we do tend to rotate. There's an awful lot in the loft, and I've given Joe, my engine builder, quite a few, because he's the real man behind it, scenes and everything. Put a lot of effort in these last few years, especially to keep this old car going and this old driver.
You said it, not me. You said it. Right, I'm going to let you go anyway. Best of luck, Rod. There's still work to do, isn't there? A small matter of 2 races, 698. Can he get 2 wins today? Let's go see who else is about, shall we, as well, and have a little chat. We've got Williams over here in the Clio. Let's go say hello. See how we're feeling ahead of this one. Of course, last minute tyre changes for everybody. It's quite a dramatic way to start this race. Have you been involved in something like this before, where it's go out, come straight back in, tyre change, back out?
No, I have never actually experienced this before. I put wets on to come out with any. I went out with slicks on practice and didn't go very well. It's a new car. I'm just here to try to get the car to bed into the car a little bit.
Essentially, here to enjoy it, here to have a good time.
Enjoy it. So I put treaded back on just to be a bit safer out there with the.
That's what motorsport's about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I want. Get out smiling.
And you are smiling. Thank you very much for talking to us. I'm going to go see if I can have a word with 2 very special people indeed. Let's go knock on the window of the safety car, shall we? They might tell us that they can't talk, but let's do it anyway, shall we? Let's give them a knock. Hello. I just wanted to have a quick word. We are live, so hello.
Yes.
And
hello.
first of all, it's been quite an eventful day for you two, hasn't it?
And it makes a big difference when the weather changes in the middle of things, as you've probably seen. Ask your questions.
Right. I understand that essentially during the race times, except for lunch, that's the only time you're allowed out of the car, is that right?
In between races, we normally have about 10 or 15 minutes, so we've got
you are allowed to call a nature break.
A quick break, but we had a 3-hour race yesterday, and that needed a little bit of preparation.
Fantastic. I've been told you've got to go, so sorry about that. Thank you very much for talking to us. Now it is time for the race. I can please say the gates are opening, so I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to call you with all of the action.
And Ian can go and find somewhere warmer and drier to enjoy the race from. Good stuff there from him. Yes, 15 minutes of racing then is not that far away from getting started now. Let's try this again, shall we? Take 2 of the BMR Super Saloons and CMMCS TinTops series. Rod Birley then on 698 career wins. If he wins this first race of the day, he'll be 1 away from the magic 700. He's got Chris Bassett alongside him in the Peugeot. Row number 2 for Nick Sutton in the Mitsubishi, which is another 4-wheel drive car that should enjoy these conditions, and the front-wheel drive Honda Civic Type R of Vic Hope. Then we've got on row number 3 Nick Wall's Renault Clio and the Scirocco of Steve Dan, with Peter Selden and Dave Hutchins on row 4, Neil Gardner and Ronan Bradley rounding out the top 10 ahead of Gary Barlow and Colin Tester. Ian Seal and Ken Angell are on the 7th row ahead of Mark Cripps and Chris Birley, with Richard Sanders and Nicholas Lunn next, and Mark Williams on the 10th row of the grid alongside Jacques Whitehead. Then it's Martin Scott and the Citroen Saxo of Angelo Massanetto at the back of the field.
Next to him is Chris Bassett,
So the next question is just what are the track conditions like? How wet is it out there? Standing water shouldn't be such an issue. I don't think it was that heavy a shower, but it certainly made the track damp. Not even actually soaking wet, really, is it? So it wasn't quite a quick shower in the end. It's got noticeably darker out there, though, as a result of that. And that's going to be the theme now the rest of the day, really. Still one or two of them arriving, so they're going to grid them up on the grid, on the track, before setting them back out on their way. That's the 88 car of Neil Gardner, who is bringing his Honda Civic through. I think he might be the last one, actually, that we're waiting for. Everyone else appears to be pretty much where they were supposed to be. You can see here the great variety of car out there, and not just as far as makes and models, but types of car as well. You've got these sort of fully custom-built things like the Ford Escort of Rod Birley at the front of the field, and then you've got the far more standard cars like the Peugeot alongside of Chris Bassett, that Peugeot 306, the likes of which we would have seen racing in the Production Saloon Car Championship back in the late 90s, for example. And then also the likes of the Renault Clio that I've spotted a bit further back. That looks like an ex-Renault Clio Cup car of Mark Williams. Here comes the Civic now of Gardner. We are waiting for one more, aren't we? I think that might be the Jacques Whitehead BMW. No, that car is there. In fact, I'd say that Clio is out of position, isn't it? Because Mark Williams is supposed to be on the 10th row alongside the number 3 BMW, but he's possibly slightly ahead, actually. It may be the row ahead that's missing somebody. But anyway, it doesn't really matter because everyone is now starting to get on the move for their first green flag lap. Now, will they give them another 2 green flag laps? Because they gave them the 2 green flag laps in the wet earlier on, but not everyone was on track to take them because someone pitted. So they may elect to go for a second green flag lap. Paul Watson there bringing up the rear in the BMW. Didn't set a time in qualifying. It's good to see Paul out there in the orange and black BMW. 23rd on the grid for him. So from that angle it looks quite wet, doesn't it? At Paddock Hill Bend, Druids looks pretty slippery. There is a bit of spray being kicked up. This side of the circuit looks wetter than the other, I would say. It's possibly the direction from which the weather was coming from, but you can see from the trees there's no movement at all on those leaves. It is not there's not much breeze blowing this weather through. In fact, it might still be drizzling, actually. I'm just trying to see it on that camera. It looks like there might be a bit of rain still falling, so in fact, yes, I'm almost certain there is. So the conditions aren't going to be improving, are they, over the 15-minute race? They're here to stay. Rod Birley in his 4-wheel drive Ford Escort should be well suited for these conditions. That's why he said he doesn't mind it being wet. It's just these in-betweeny conditions, but I think we are verging now on full wet conditions, really, aren't we, as they prepare to get the race underway properly. So they are going to give them a second green flag lap. Then that's probably sensible stuff because the conditions, as I said, are less than ideal. So they're giving them a second green flag lap, but the race has started. So the race will start behind safety car, basically. So this is the first lap of the race, but obviously won't be under racing conditions until the end of this lap then. Just trying to keep the programme moving. We are now about 15 minutes behind time. So the race officially starts then with Rod Birley, the leader, working his way around side by side. If all of the laps were under safety car, that'd have probably suited, but he doesn't want to be hitting this 700 race victory milestone without having a bit of a fight on his hands, I'm sure. He does relish the close competition out there, Rod. That's why he keeps on coming back, racing in many different series, but in recent years predominantly those based around the southeast, which is where he lives. Brands Hatch, the circuit he's had by far the most race victories at, and he's looking for another 2 and looks good for it as well. In qualifying he was 1.1 seconds faster than anybody else. That was in dry-ish conditions, a little bit damp maybe, certainly a lot wetter out there now. Let's see who's going to master the weather the best then, as 13.5 minutes of racing in the BMR Super Saloons and the Classic and Modern Motorsport Club TinTops series are about to get underway then. It is Birley on pole position, it's the Peugeot of Chris Bassett alongside. Who gets into Paddock Hill Bend first then, and what are the track conditions going to be like? How much or little grip will there be? Let's find out then. The lights will go out now we're away and racing. There's definitely a bit of overtaking going on before the line there. That was one of the BMWs coming through, but it's Birley that holds onto the advantage through the first corner and will now try and escape up the road. A couple of wayward cars there, one of the Civics running a bit wide through the first corner. That was Colin Tester's number 80 car, I think, that was out over the painted curbs. Now that Mitsubishi in third position, I expect to be quick here because, again, it's a four-wheel drive car. In these conditions, that's definitely the drivetrain that you want, really, at your disposal. So keep an eye to Nick Sutton. As I say that, he loses a position actually to the Scirocco of Steve Dan, who is on the inside. Steve Dan started all the way down in 6th place on the grid. He's up to 3rd already and challenging now for 2nd actually on the inside into Surtees. Didn't quite get past the Peugeot. That big heavy Mitsubishi actually struggling a little bit, it seems, in these conditions. Oh, spin at Graham Hill Bend. That's the number 3 BMW of Jacques Whitehead, the 330iC. Pretty much a production-based BMW that, but he's had a rotation, half rotation. We are at Graham Hill Bend, but gets going once again through Graham Hill Bend. Lots of different lines in use, but the quickest line being used by Rod Birley because he leads them through at the end of this, the opening lap of the race. Then the opening racing lap of the race by 4 seconds over Christy and Dan. Yes, it is Steve Dan. Sorry, in 2nd place. Dan's got past Chris Bassett then for P2 for the 2nd lap in succession. There, the Colin Tester blue Civic takes a very wide line. 3 of the Civics together here, all running in the same class. No, they're not all in the same class. The 2 ahead are running in TinTops Class 2. The blue car of Colin Tester, running to a slightly different specification, is in Class 1. A spin for the 97, right in front of some of the leaders, and there is contact there, I'm afraid, and that's done quite a bit of damage to the 97 car. 97 is Peter Selden. I'm not quite sure. Selden had gained quite a lot of places at the start of that lap then because he crossed the line in 6th, but the car he made contact with, the car he made contact with was the 78, wasn't it, which was running right behind him of Ronan Bradley. And there is Ronan Bradley. So that's the car that got collected. We didn't see it originally, but I think he's subsequently spun coming out of the corner. There's a lot of steam that's come from the car that initially rotated. That's a Peter Selden. Not been a good corner that for BMW drivers, has it? 3 BMWs in strife at Graham Hill Bend in the first couple of racing laps. Rod Birley then, 5.2 seconds up the road from 2nd place Steve Dan, 3rd place Chris Bassett in the Peugeot, 4th is the Mitsubishi that we're seeing on screen now of Nick Sutton, and rounding out the top 5, number 58 is Nick Wall, and that is the black Renault Clio there in 5th position with the first of the Civics behind. So as far as the classes are concerned, the top 3 cars are all in different classes, so they're all class leaders, Birley, Dan and Bassett. The closest to the class battles is going to be probably between the Civics of Gardner and Hutchins. You would suspect, certainly seems to be the way at the moment. But Rod Birley, Class A, the same class as the Mitsubishi actually of Nick Sutton, but he's in a class of his own really at the moment, isn't he? Look at the gap that Rod Birley's got. You start now to understand how he's won 698 races over his long and very, very successful career. Battle for 3rd there at the top of the screen. Looks like the Mitsubishi is starting to come into its own a bit now after a slightly slow start. All of a sudden Nick Sutton is right on the tail of Chris Bassett's Peugeot. He pulls to the outside, but the safety car comes out, and I don't think he got that move made in time, did he? He's going to have to give it back. The safety car boards and yellow flags are out. This must be because of the BMW graveyard that's forming down at Graham Hill Bend. So let's see how long this is going to take. Only a 15-minute race, of course. In these conditions, almost guaranteed to have a few people in strife. Nick Sutton then does indeed let Chris Bassett have that 2nd place back again. There's the Scirocco. Sorry, 3rd place for Bassett. Sutton was ahead of the line by 37 thousandths of a second, but I think the yellow flags had gone out before that. So to the left of shot there, you can see the Ronan Bradley car. There it is. No damage to this side of the car. The contact was with the right hand side, but Marshall there signalling that it needs a tow, so broken right rear suspension perhaps. It is a rear wheel drive car as well, of course, so they wouldn't be able to tow it if that was the case. So we'll see. They are going to try and pull it, I think, with the trackside recovery truck. And then I'm guessing the Peter Selden car, where did that end up? It looked like it was pulling off to the left of this shot on the other side of the straight. And that means there are 2 cars there, although the Selden one, if it's on the inside of the track, they could probably leave. It's the one on the outside that's going to be more in danger, isn't it, really? This BMW is staying out of trouble, thankfully. It's led a lot of laps today as well, and indeed all weekend has the safety car. But it leads Rod Birley, who loses all of that advantage that he had over Steve Dan. Now, Dan's fastest lap is a 104.7. That is a full second slower than Birley. So you wouldn't expect Rod to be under too much threat on the restart, but you never know. Very easy to make a mistake in these conditions, but that Escort is a very well sorted car. Not just powerful and quick in a straight line, but obviously four-wheel drive, grips well through the corners, a good chassis, it's got aerodynamics on it as well, does everything that a racing car should. That's why Rod's been able to pick up so many race victories over recent years at the wheel of it. The BMW then almost out of the way. Are we going to go racing this time? We probably couldn't we? Yep, lights are out, so a very short safety car interlude this time, and with just over 7.5 minutes to go, it's Rod Birley that leads the way and needs to now try and execute a good restart. He's done a few of these over the years, sure he knows what he's doing. So up through the final corner at Clearway, safety car bears right, Rod Birley stays left and guns it now to the start finish line. Rod Birley then across the start finish line and gets the race back underway. So just after half race distance, we're back racing once again in the BMR Super Saloons and Classic and Modern Motorsport Club TinTops series. TinTops being led by Bassett. Now that is the number 80, isn't it, of Colin Tester. He's got a problem, I think. Well, the others can't overtake him before the line. So, or was it the BMW that had? No, it was the BMW. I beg your pardon. It was hard to tell who was ahead there. So the 101 car was slow for some reason, and Colin Tester couldn't go past him until they crossed the line. So, the 101 car is a lap down, so I can't actually tell from the timing screen whether or not he did pass him before the line. If he did, it was fractional. Well, that's a shame for Colin, because that drops him now. He lost about 8 seconds through all of that. Side by side there, a couple more BMWs making their way through. That's Peter Selden. So Selden carried on then, although he has another big slide there, the red BMW. But this is the car that was involved in the contact with Ronan Bradley at this part of the circuit that triggered the safety car. I assumed that Peter was out of the race, but that's not the case. So into Surtees they go, and Selden looking quite quick actually, goes up the inside of Colin Tester there, follows through the other BMW, that of who was that? Not the 37 car, that was the 45 BMW. Martin Scott, who's come from 21st on the grid to running 9th at the moment. So the Mitsubishi into third place. What's happened to Chris Bassett in the Peugeot? He was third. He's come across the line fifth after a really slow restart lap there. So Birley still leads. Dan is second, but the Peugeot there, look, the white Peugeot is in fifth position. So not a great restart that from Bassett. So through to third goes Sutton. Into fourth goes Wall. And now Nick Sutton tries to get away from the Renault Clio. Two completely different cars here. You've got the big four-door, four-wheel drive Mitsubishi, which has a bit more power and traction off the corners, but is also a lot heavier than the two-door, front-wheel drive Renault Clio, which you can see is quite a bit nippier through the corners, carries more corner speed, and then you get to a straight and it can't quite keep up. This is one of the great elements of racing like this, multi-class racing, where you've got cars that generate their lap times in completely different ways to each other. It does create some really, really interesting racing, especially in these conditions. Some cars a little bit more at home than others. Colin Tester there with Ken Angell right behind him, and then on the Civic is number 5, that's Vic Hope, who started 4th, and Vic all the way down in 12th position at the moment. Second place Scirocco heads down the hill then. Steve Dan 1.5 seconds behind Rod Birley. He matched Birley on the last lap actually. Rod Birley has the fastest lap, which he set on the first lap after the restart, a 1 minute 2.699. Compares to a 58.8, which was his pole position time in the dry, so that shows how much the track conditions have deteriorated. But Birley, in fairness, not gapping Dan by a huge amount on the last lap. On this lap though, he's going faster. He was half a second up on Dan in the first sector alone, so I suspect Birley had a moment on the previous lap. That's why he maybe didn't gain quite the same amount of time over his pursuer as he normally would. There is Chris Bassett. Now Bassett really is struggling, isn't he? He's got the 6th place Civic right behind him now. That's number 49 Dave Hutchins. In fact, forget right behind him, he's up the inside of him now as they come off clearways. So the Honda Civic then moving up alongside Chris Bassett's Peugeot, and Chris I think is going to have no choice but to let him go here. They're pretty evenly matched in a straight line, but the Honda is going to have the inside line heading for Paddock. Oh, and there, it's almost like the Peugeot found an extra gear, wasn't it? And as they head for Paddock Hill Bend then, the Civic was up the inside. And what happened with the Peugeot and the Civic. It is still, well, they're still side by side actually. I thought the Peugeot had cleared the Honda, but no, Hutchins is still up the inside of Chris Bassett. And I think they might still be side by side out of Druids. No, the Civic now finally gets through. It's been a bit of a disappointing race this for Chris Bassett. In the wet, he might have been hoping that maybe he would have had a good chance of a podium, but that's not the case. He's ended up fading quite badly now to 6th, and he could lose more because he's got another Civic behind him now, that of number 88 Neil Gardner, who started 9th and is currently running in 7th, but catching that 6th place car ahead. And also in this group is Peter Selden, 9th place for the red BMW, with all of that damage at the front left corner, which I was sure was pretty terminal when I saw it have the spin and the subsequent contact, but carried on and the car running well. Lead gap, interestingly, came down by 0.3 that time, and Steve Dan set the fastest second sector of anybody. So actually, as we get deeper into the race, Steve Dan warming to the challenge now, keeping the gap under 2 seconds. There goes Selden up the inside of one of the Civics. That was him getting past Gardner, I think. And it's all changed actually since we last saw them, because it's now the 45 BMW of Martin Scott, which I'll remind you started 21st, but the Gulf liveried car is now ahead of the Peugeot into 6th. So 6th place for 21st for the BMW, and now Peter Selden closing in as well towards Surtees. There you go, new fastest lap for the race leader Rod Birley meanwhile, so he responds to the threat from Steve Dan behind. 2.5 seconds now then is the cushion between the two of them. Number 11 car, that's the first real look at the VW Golf of Mark Cripps, right on the tail of Ken Angell. These two fighting over 11th position right now. In qualifying, these two were almost identical as well actually, because Angell was only a little bit quicker than Cripps, so good to see them continuing that close battle through the race. They've got the lapped BMW there that had that early spin to clear, that of Jacques Whitehead. As they head across the line, the Golf tries to get on the inside of the Ken Angell BMW. Ken, another driver who's very experienced, raced in this series for a number of years. He's later on the brakes than the Golf, closes in actually on Colin Tester in the 11th placed Honda Civic, 10th placed Honda Civic, excuse me. So the right-hander at Druids can't quite find a way through yet. Colin Tester in one of those area motorsport prepared Civics that race in the Honda Civic Cup. Yeah, good to see those cars getting some good mileage as well here at the end of the season. Right, battle for what's this now? This is 8th place that Chris Bassett has fallen down into, and he's got the number 88 Honda Civic, Neil Gardner right behind him. There's Rod Birley, he's put a lap on them now. Rod Birley 1.2 seconds ahead of Steve Dan, so he set a purple second sector last time, did Birley, but his first sector was really slow. In traffic, Rod Birley is actually being a bit more tentative, I think, than Steve Dan, and he gets delayed again by the traffic now going through Surtees, so look how much closer that black Scirocco is getting. The trouble is, I think this is going to be the final lap. If there'd been one more lap, I reckon Dan might have had a shot at this, but he's just going to run out of time, because the time does now tick down to 0. Rod Birley tries to find a way through the traffic. Careful, Rod. It is win 699 for Rod Birley, who wins the opening race of the day for the BMR Super Saloons here at Brands Hatch, and he's one away now from that really incredible milestone. Second place goes to Steve Dan, only 9/10 in it at the end after Rod had to really back off on the final couple of laps in traffic. And now we wait for quite some time until the 3rd place car comes through. That should be number 58 Nick Wall, because he's been able to pull away from Nick Sutton towards the end of the race. And indeed Wall just went through, waiting for the white Mitsubishi to come through. That is there, and it only just hangs on, because what a drive that was from Martin Scott in the blue and orange BMW from 21st on the grid. He finished 5th and only a quarter of a second behind Sutton's Mitsubishi. So the BMW really was rapid and should be a contender for a podium in the second race later on, maybe even a race win if it's dry. So don't count out Martin Scott, who had some problems in qualifying, didn't complete as many laps as the rest of the field. As far as the class winners, Birley wins in Class A, Dan wins Class B. The Invitational class is a Class 1, and it was Nick Wall's Renault Clio that wins that class. Class C was won by number 45, Martin Scott, in 5th place overall. Class D by number 97, which was Peter Selden's BMW, despite that contact in the early stages. And then into the tin-top classes, there were plenty of other class winners as well. You can see the different classes denoted by the different coloured blocks next to the names. So Birley wins the race and wins in Class A. Second place, Steve Dan wins Class B. Third place, Nick Wall wins the Invitational class. And then fourth place for Sutton, another one of the Class A cars. In fifth is the Class C winner, Martin Scott. In sixth is the Class D winner, which was the 97 of Peter Selden. And then in seventh, the first of the tin-tops home, that was the number 49, which wins the tin-top category overall, and the car of Dave Hutchins, that is, the Honda Civic, and also wins Class T2 by, in the end, just 0.3 of a second over the 33 of Bassett and the 88 of Gardner, all of those three in the same class. Then it was Mark Cripps who was next, ahead of the BMW of Ken Angell. Colin Tester's Civic was in 12th, and those two were the first two in Class T1, with Angell just about getting past Tester there towards the end of the race. So an entertaining race then. Rob Birley it is who gets win number 699, and he is going to be down in Parfum 8 very shortly then, with Ian Waterhouse, who has got the winningest driver in Brands Hatch history down with him.
Right, there we go. Win number 699 for this man, Rod Birley. But Rod, it got a bit hairy at the end, didn't it, really?
Oh yeah, those back markers. Fair play, they're having their own race, they're dicing, the conditions weren't that great and they probably couldn't see. But yeah, that was a bit of a heart flutter.
As we've said a few times before, it's quite a big weekend. Could be a huge weekend for you, of course, but it's really been made quite difficult so far, hasn't it? That early red flag, of course. Then you look like you got away really well. You're in control. Safety car just bunching everybody back up again. And actually, Steve Dan was going quite well, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he was. I noticed he started following my lines. So I got away, hoping that nobody would follow me, and I saw the safety car, and I thought, oh, great. And it's happened here quite a few times this year, and you just know that once someone's on your tail, they're going to follow your line.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of a knack round this circuit when it's wet. But yeah, it was a bit heart-stopping because a lap before with the two Fiestas, and they're having a really good race, Chris Birley and Ian Sanders, and as we went into paddock, they just, yeah, they got a bit hairy.
Oh, no. Well, look, 699. One race left to go today.
Yeah.
The Magic 7. It's on.
It's on.
It's
yes,
on.
It's on.
There's a lot to do. Where are you starting race 2 from?
Well, that result of this race determines the grid for the second, so we're on pole.
Perfect.
I've got a feeling that I'll be very surprised if it dries out now, but it's still going to be a lottery on who makes their tyres last.
It's still actually raining now, very fine, very fine, but you know, it's not going to clear, is it?
No, I think this is it. This is November, Brands Hatch. Yeah, it's going to be wet, it's going to be damp.
It is. Well, look, you better get back and get ready, haven't you? Congratulations, Rod. Win number 699. One more to go. It's going to be later this afternoon. Are we going to see it? So I'm going to hand back to Andy to tell you what's coming up next.
Well, what's coming up next on track at Brands Hatch is a warm-up session for the Brit Car Endurance Championship. So we're going to use this as a good opportunity to take a little bit of a break. Ian's going to be down there in the pit lane, though, very shortly, chatting to drivers and seeing what they make of the afternoon of racing to come. We've still got a lot of races ahead, though, so don't go anywhere. We'll have more here from Brands Hatch in just a few minutes' time.
That was it, and I failed, and I think everybody else did as well. And